Yeah, I know. This is never running again.
You go a whole lifetime waiting for something like that to publish.
Your microphones are on the air right now.
Good afternoon. We're going to bring the special meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee to order. It is, we're in the City Hall chambers, and the date is May the 12th. We have a quorum, Ms. Brew, Mr. Smith, Mr. Rosenthal. Because there are no agenda items as for specific departments as our prior agendas had, we will be receiving cards on any item that is under the jurisdiction of the Budget and Finance Committee. So if you wish to speak on any of the issues within our purview, you have to fill out a card. We'll call you up as cards have been presented to us. Also, for this, our clerk and also our ITA, I understand that we have public comment from either the Valley or the Harbor or both, and so we want to be made aware when those cards come in. And so we can start the agenda, and the first two cards that we have, and this will be 1 minute presentation, and hopefully that because of the number of people that would like to speak, that we would ask that we, when the buzzer goes off, that you not go beyond the time. And we'd also ask, because from looking at the cards, a number of people here on the same item, that we not continually repeat what was said prior. So let me start off with Ms. Helen Zukin, who's here, and also behind her, if we can get you to line up, it would be facilitate. We have Zandra Caden, Lenora Gerstmann, and Brian Quito. So we get those four up, and Ms. Zukin, you can get started.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the committee. As president of the Ethics Commission, I'm here today to outline and convey my serious concerns about the proposed 17.9% budget cut to the Ethics Commission. I am very cognizant of the seriousness of the financial crisis and the difficult task before you, but it's important to your decision-making process that you understand the ramifications of these cuts. The cuts appear to be disproportionate when you look at the median cuts for other departments of approximately 10%. It's important to recognize that these cuts would cause the Ethics Commission to cut 6 positions, 5 filled positions. That would have a very negative impact on enforcement, on investigations, on education. It would really hamper the Commission. So I urge you to please
Finish your thought.
I urge you please to consider if there is an opportunity to add 3 more positions back to the Ethics Commission at a cost of $225,000. That would add 3 positions that would allow the Commission to continue to be viable and function. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Caton?
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. I was the director of the commission that drafted the ethics code, and the best thing we did was to create the commission itself, because it was able to respond to changes and needs as the city has gone on. But this cut is disproportionate, as I think Ms. Dukin just said, to other departments particularly, and this is a very critical time when everyone is watching, but there won't be, with the Ethics Commission cut down and the decline of the capacity of the news media, including Mr. Rosenthal's shows for many years, people don't know what's going on. The lack of knowledge about how city government runs is a factor in the increasing trust, and the lack of trust itself is one of the most critical issues in American government today. People don't need efficiency as much as they need fairness, and that's what the Ethics Commission should be about.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leonora Gershman-Pitts, the co-chair of the Atwater Village Neighborhood Council. I'm here to ask you to please reconsider gutting the budget for the neighborhood councils in the city of Los Angeles. We fully understand that given the city's budget crisis, we all have to make sacrifices, but we are asking you to only reduce our funding to no less than $45,000 per year. What the Atwater Village Neighborhood Council does is fill in the blanks where the city is unable. None of our money goes into equipment or office space. With the exception of a little help for note-taking and bookkeeping, all of our funds go directly to the community. We've helped fund our murals. We've had a community day and health fair in Chevy Chase Park to tell the Tunerville gang that we belong there too. We have funded our farmers market, which brings 2,000 people to Atwater Village every day, every Sunday. We bought brush boxes for our firefighters, a quarterly newsletter. We funded a parking study for our small businesses. We have a tree lighting every Christmas. With great involvement from our stakeholders, our hard work has made our little village the type of place where young families want to move. Because of this, our property values have skyrocketed and remain strong in this downturn, bringing much-needed tax revenue to the city. Our small businesses benefit from our work, which has engendered a pedestrian, meaning walking, clientele. Our merchants hire locally, and our stakeholders shop locally, and our money goes right back into the city of Los Angeles. I guarantee you that every dollar spent by the Atwater Village Neighborhood Council comes back to the city tenfold in tax revenue, civic pride, and an informed and enthusiastic citizenry. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Mr. Quito is next, but we have Mike Neuhaus, and is it Meiji Jones and Sandy Vargas? If you can come up and stand. Ryan?
I'll make this real quick because my meter's about to run out.
Okay.
My name is Brian Quito. I own the oldest business in Little Tokyo right down the street. They're 106 years old. I'm actually the first vice president of the Historical Cultural Neighborhood Council, which involves Little Tokyo, Chinatown, Solano Canyon, Artist Districts, and Alvera Street. You know, I know that the neighborhood councils at this point, you know, a lot of them in the beginning may not be able to spend their money. They seem a bit disorganized. We're one of those committees that started close to 7 years ago. And it took us about 2 years to finally get ours up and going. We spent many hours, volunteer hours, with the board and all those involved to get it off the ground. We have done many good things over the last 3-4 years. I've been on this committee involved for more than 7 years myself. But we are in favor, the HCNC is in favor of the mayor's suggestion of the 10% across the board. But I do want to remind us all that all these board members, we are not being paid. We are all doing this for free. So I can tell you that this money is well spent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Neuhaus. I'm the president of the Venice Neighborhood Council, and I'm also the chair of the West Side Regional Alliance of Councils. That's a regional alliance of 11 West Side councils. That's Bel Air, Beverly Crest, Brentwood, Palms, Westchester Playa, Mar Vista, Venice, South Robertson, West Side Neighborhood Council, West LA, Palisades, and the Delray Council. You're going to hear a lot from everybody here about the specific programs that we're working on and why these are important. I'm not going to be redundant on that point. What I want to emphasize to you on this committee and the City Council in general and everybody in this room is that neighborhood councils are your strongest resource and your strongest ally in the governance you're doing and what the city is doing. Councilman Rosendahl, who's our councilman, is fantastic about whenever he has an idea or wants to know what the pulse in the community is, he comes to his neighborhood councils, he says, have hearings, figure this out for me, and find out where the community is on it. The only way to make that happen, what this committee should remember, on top of all the community improvement projects we do, is to have the funds to have meetings monthly, to have town halls on a quarterly basis, to send out newsletters, to organize meetings. All these things cost more than we even have in a $50,000 budget, let alone trying to cut us beyond that. The city needs to take 10% cuts. We want to be part of that. We're proud to be part of that. But this money can't go any lower than $45,000. We need that $45,000 to be serving our community and to be a resource to you all on the city council that we were meant to be under the charter. Thank you very much.
Is it Margie Jones? Sandy Vargas?
Did you say Maria Jones?
Ms. Jones? We'll get you a microphone in just a second. The handheld. Just 1 second.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yes.
My name is Sandy Vargas. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of Palms Neighborhood Council, and I'm speaking on behalf of our board and one other member later. I've heard a lot of talk here about the budget today. Some of the words that I've heard are prudent. To cut back the neighborhood councils more than the 10% that the city is taking citywide is not a prudent move. The 90 neighborhood councils provide the city and the council members with 600 staff for free. That works out to each council member having 40 field deputies for free. We are volunteers and we work all the time. We are in the community, we live in the community, we have close bonds with our council members. We report straight to them. We have relationships with our field deputies, and we represent your community.
Thank you.
For free.
Thank you. Margie Jones called earlier. You ready? Just go to the podium. Jan Han, CD 15.
Thank you, Chairman Parks and distinguished members of our Budget and Finance Committee for the City of Los Angeles. First of all, my hat's off to all of you. I can't ever remember a budget being this difficult, this dire, and this problematic. You all have worked so hard. The night that you were here past midnight was something I think most people don't even know, that you're trying to get through this and find the best possible solutions to close this unbelievable gap that we have in our budget. But I'm here today, as you would expect, standing up for the neighborhood councils in the city of Los Angeles. I consider myself the mother of neighborhood councils. It was something that we created in the 1997 charter, and we've had our ups and our downs with neighborhood councils, but in my opinion, our neighborhood councils play a very important role in government. It's now the way we do business in the city of Los Angeles. There is no going back, and they perform functions that I know you know we can't perform anymore. And they do things that we just don't have the budget to do, and they also know their neighborhoods, I think, a lot better than sometimes the government does. So I am pleading with you to restore their funding to the $45,000, which would represent the 10% cut that we're asking all other city departments to do. I don't think they should be asked to have a deeper cut than where we're asking other departments or employees to take. Now, I know the proposal, I believe, I'm very happy to hear that your proposal is already somewhere around $35,000 or $40,000. I would say you could take $35,000, but then I am just going to say this, and I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why you're going to tell me this is not going to work, but I say we take back the money from the city clerk's office that they've asked for the elections and give that back to the neighborhood councils, which would be another $10,000 for each neighborhood council, restoring them to that $45,000 amount, which I believe they have all agreed to come to the table and are willing to take that cut. I have in my hand, as I know you all have as well, the report from the city clerk when we were deciding whether or not to move this into the city clerk's office. We have their report that says during the spring of 2010, when the full program is underway, some 90 neighborhood councils, the cost for the fiscal year will be approximately $1.3 million. Now they're saying they were wrong, and it's going to take $2.8 million. I don't think neighborhood council should have to suffer that loss when the city clerk made a wrong estimate. They said they could do it for $1.3 million. We're asking every department to do more with less. So let's just throw that back on the city clerk. You said you could do it for 1.3. Do it for 1.3. Give the remaining money back to the neighborhood councils and restore them to their $45,000 thing. I think that's what I'm asking you to do, and I hope you'll do that tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Thank you. Thank you. Let me ask Peter Hartz, Ivan Spiegel, Yolanda Gonzalez. You can come up at the podium.
Hello, my name is Peter Hartz. I'm the treasurer of the Greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council. The saying is that politics is local, and the neighborhood council system is as local as you can get in politics. And so the money that is funded by Dunn and given to the neighborhood councils literally reaches right down into these specific neighborhoods. So in our area, that means that we have 2 elementary schools in our area, Rio Vista and Toluca Lake Elementary. We have funded programs for them for things that they can't get funding for. And we've seen direct results in terms of academic performance by after-school tutoring. We've also extended out funding to things such as LAPD for an interrogation room that a bunch of neighborhood councils shared in North Hollywood. So the money that goes to the councils really reaches the people, and that's a bond between government and the people that would be a mistake to violate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ivan?
Good afternoon. My name is Ivan Spiegel. I'm a stakeholder in the Venice Neighborhood Council. And this is where the rubber meets the road for you guys. The neighborhood councils take care of community issues that would fall in the cracks. It's all run by volunteers, by community activists that really care what's going on in their communities. The Venice Neighborhood Council, for example, spends 40% of their budget and gives it right back into the community, spending on a program called the Community Improvement Projects. In the last year, This council funded beautification, music festivals, concerts, school beautification, a senior citizens dance, after-school programs for children, Toys for Tots for the LAPD. The money goes right back into the community, and it's taxpayer dollars, and it's a wonderful outreach for everybody in the city, because everyone in the community knows where this money's coming from. It comes from you, it comes from the neighborhood councils. If this budget proposal goes through, these kinds of programs will be wiped out. $11,000 basically pays the rent. All of this other money will be gone. Thank you.
Thank you. While Yolanda's coming up, we have, can we get Shaolin McPherson, Jay Handel, and Linda Lux. Come up.
Good afternoon. Yolanda Gonzalez, past Vice President of Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council and Venice 3 years in a row. I'm going to take it to another route why neighborhood councils were created under the charter, because you couldn't get the votes into city council and you couldn't get elected because there weren't enough people to vote. And now, neighborhood councils were created at the same time because you saw the Latino movement rising up, which we are becoming the 46% of your votes into this city. And I'm happy to be one of those and speak English fluently, being my second language. I started the movement of education because my communities, being a property owner in 4 district councils, I wanted to have manicured American properties, just like everybody does have. It is important that you take that into consideration, because today I found out that out of the neighborhood council, you're going to have 3 people running for office, and I'm going to be one of those, at no charge to the city council for the 14th district. I am preparing myself for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Shaolin McPherson. I am pleased to serve on the Venice Neighborhood Council, and I've lived in Venice since 1964. One thing I want to impress upon you, if nothing else, don't treat us like expendable luxuries. We are your most cost-effective tool. We are the city's base of volunteers. We have demonstrated that we can get out the vote. We've demonstrated that we can support the better part of what the City Council does. We've heard how serious the budget deficit is, but guys, why should we have to take anything less than anybody else? 10% across the board. That's it. That's from the mayor on down. We are your best ambassadors to the citizenry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Handel. I'm from the West Side. 1,500 volunteers at an average of 8 hours a month at plumber's rate is over $15 million. We get no salary. We have no COLAs. We have no benefits. We have no pensions. We have no city cars. We don't have any paid staff. No, we've had no increase over the 7 years we've had a neighborhood council like other departments. We are the ones who have the pulse in the community. There's not another department like us at no increases for 7 years. The city clerk wants $4 million to run a $1 million budget. $4 million. Now I hear it could be 2.3. $1.5 million equals $16,800 per neighborhood council. It's fiscally irresponsible to pay $4 million for a $1 million budget. And finally, I ask all of you as council people, why don't you tie our reduction to your reduction and show us how important we are to the city council people? So if you take a bigger hit, maybe we need to take a bigger hit. But if you don't think you're that important, maybe we're not that important. Thank you.
While Linda's coming up, we'd ask Sharon Cummins, Stephen Boskin, and Humberto Camacho to come up to the front. Thank you. Linda?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. My name is Linda Lux. I'm the president of the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. And in that capacity, I travel all over the city with my board, and we listen to all the neighborhood councils in all of your districts. And I can say that in a very few years, the neighborhood council system has grown to be a force to be reckoned with. Behind me, you are going to hear many of us. It's a wonderful thing. It's a benefit to the city. One of the most important and perhaps not envisioned possible products of the neighborhood council system is the fact that we are the first responders. If you remember what happened just this last year with the Metrolink crash and the fires in the valley, who was on the front lines before the Red Cross or anyone else got there? It was the neighborhood council members. We are gearing up across the city. I'm the vice president also of the Venice Neighborhood Council. We are all working in our own communities to develop emergency preparedness plans because we know when and if a disaster hits, people are going to come to us. We are going to be there. So keep that in mind. If you're thinking of cutting our budgets, more don't, because we need to be the people there that represent you when you can't be there, and we are. And we thank you for keeping that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Sharon Cummins, and I have the privilege of serving as second vice chair of the Mar Vista Community Council. Every time a neighborhood council seeds a project, like a farmer's market, or cleans a street, or buys books for the library, or funds a park event, that's a multiplier. That's a fiscal multiplier because those dollars go back into the community for goods and services. Every time a community council seeds a project, you get improvements in the business district. You get buildings that are renovated and new tenants coming into the parcels. This is important because it bolsters consumer confidence, and that's really our number one job in helping our city recover from this economic crisis. You don't have consumer confidence, you don't have dollars moving, you don't have fees and taxes coming into the city. Help us help you by restoring that whole $45,000. We can make good use of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Stephen Boskin. Good afternoon, council members. I'm a member of the Mar Vista Community Council Board. I don't speak eloquently, but I've heard a lot of interesting things said this afternoon. One thing that I have not heard mentioned was that our community council has constituent hours at our farmers market every Sunday. We have people who come and bang on us and complain, and we're there to solve their problems. You guys want to trade places with us? You come on Sunday, we'll take the day off. Thank you.
Just a minute, Umberto. While you're coming up, may I ask Soledad Garcia, Michael Cohen, and Nina Royal to come on up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Council, my name is Humberto Camacho, Pico Union Neighborhood Council. I just want to be brief and I tell you that Pico Union has, under the new direction, helped the schools, helped the police department, helped the fire department, and we have a health fair coming this coming June the 6th. So we are doing the work that you have supposed to be done free of charge. $45,000, I don't think it's going to hurt you much, and I think that money is needed for the community. Estamos aquí para protestar el asunto de 80% de descuento para nuestros fondos. Creemos nosotros que $45,000 puede ayudarnos a proseguir con los programas de ayuda a la policía, al departamento de bomberos, a las escuelas y al departamento de salud. Hemos estado haciendo el trabajo de ustedes fuera y tienen miles de soldados aquí haciendo el trabajo que no tienen ningún pago. So we just want to tell you that we have thousands of people doing the work for you free of charge. So put $45,000 back on the council.
May I ask your indulgence just for a minute? I'd like to have the DWP committee stand, please.
Could you give your name first?
Your name, Soledad Garcia,
Okay.
DWP
Right.
president. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank our esteemed CD15 Councilwoman Han support her completely, absolutely. Thank you very much. We all share the same budget deficit, but even though it's not our fault. But the idea of shutting down the neighborhood councils is a very sorry situation. We don't like the idea of behind closed doors deals. We prefer transparency, and we prefer being your advocate rather than your adversary. We really would like no further disrespect to the neighborhood councils, because we really think that this is our community and our neighborhoods that we can improve to the hilt. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael Cohen.
Michael Cohen, Reseda. Since Mayor Hahn allocated $50,000 for neighborhood council budgets, we've seen no increase in quite a number of years. Yet the city's budget has increased at over twice the rate of inflation. I'm asking you not to eviscerate neighborhood councils, the neighborhood council system. We're composed 100% of volunteers, and we give 100% to our communities. Neighborhood councils aren't the cause of the budget imbalance. So I'm asking you not to try to balance the budget on the backs of neighborhood councils. I ask that the City Council come up with a reasonable solution concerning neighborhood council budgeting, and consider the proposals to eliminate this year's city clerk funding of elections, return that back to the neighborhood councils, or another proposal is to have them do it as Councilwoman Hahn suggested, and the excess over the $1.3 million be returned to the neighborhood councils. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As our next speaker comes up, we'd also ask Tommy Lynn Bowling, Belinda Woodruff, and Dede Odette to come up.
Good afternoon. I'm Nina Royal, and I am proud to say that I am the Vice President of Outreach for the Sunland Tahunga Neighborhood Council. Previous years, no one knew who Sunland Tahunga was. We were the forgotten stepchild of the city of Los Angeles. Because of neighborhood councils and the funding that we receive, we have been able to do phenomenal outreach as a parent with Home Depot, with the Canyon Hills Project, with Vertigo Hills Golf Course, and we have been able to provide transportation for citizens that normally never set foot inside a city council meeting before, or a land use committee meeting before. We need that $45,000 to continue being successful and to continue doing the outreach that we have been doing to the citizens of the community of Sunland Tahunga to bring the government to the city. Please restore the $45,000. Thank you.
I'm Tommy Bowling. I'm on the Sunland Tahunga Neighborhood Council. I'm the first vice chair for community improvement. I've sent you all emails, and the mayor, and everybody else that would listen. I want to read to you a quote from one of my favorite people, Abraham Lincoln. This is picking up from a separate part. He says that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. The neighborhood councils restored the government to the people. And I'm here to disagree with everyone else here and say that you should not take any money from the budget. You should keep the budgets intact. It is the only government of the people, and you should support it, and they've been supporting you, and I'd like to see it continue that way. Not only are we not the problem, but we're possibly the solution. Engage your neighborhood councils. Get them to get the schools to think about the problem of the budget of the city of LA and offer a contest. Who can solve this? And offer an award of a $1,000 scholarship to the students that can solve the budget or give you a solution that you can use. Let's use these bright minds. They're really smart. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Belinda Woodruff. I'm Sunland Tahunga Neighborhood Council District Representative 4. I am a volunteer, here on my own time, took off from work today just so I could, because this is so important. What we are and what you may not realize is that we are your conduits. We're your greatest supporters, and we're conduits to your voters at the neighborhood level. The people that I represent are mothers of children who went to school with my children. They're the neighbors I represent as part of the Neighborhood Watch program. I'm also a Neighborhood Watch captain. We're the first people that the community comes to when they have a problem and they expect us to provide the solution, which we do willingly and at no charge to the city other than the measly little amount of $45,000, which is all we're asking for, just a 10% cut. I'm sure you can find it, in your heart to give it to us. Thank you.
Dede, as you come up, we ask Sean, Simmons, Andrew Latchman, Rebecca Vern Stratton McPherson, and Paul Koretz, if you can come in line.
My name is Dede Odette, and thank you for this opportunity to express my opinion. Measure B fell to the lack of accounting standards, and that created mistrust. Finding surplus money such as $27 million in unallocated funds does nothing to decrease that perception. Neighborhood councils can help bring trust to Los Angeles. In this climate of opinion, it does not make sense to cut their budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Simmons, President of NANDEC in District 8. This past fiscal year, NANDEC has used our funding to provide Little League equipment for a free summer league at MLK Park, to fund a cotillion for an after-school program that provides an alternative to gangs for young girls, to fund a senior lunch program at the Amundsen Center. I stand here opposed to the evisceration of the neighborhood council system, a move more political than financial. If this were about saving money, why would the city continue to fund Dunn's $3 million budget and the almost $4 million budget for neighborhood council elections? Why would this committee, which is charged with the fiscal responsibility, recommend over $7 million to oversee what would be a skeletal MC program funded at just $1 million? There's no sense in that. Residents have complained to me that when they call Councilman Parks' office to voice their concerns, his office has replied, would they rather lose police or firemen? We all know that the money cut from the NC budget is going to neither police nor fire, but it's purely a scare tactic. But let's play. Councilman Parks, would you rather our neighborhood council cut the after-school programs we are funding that provide an alternative to gangs? Or do you feel old people don't deserve a hot lunch? What would you like us to tell your district? Thank you.
My name is Andrewchman. I'm the chair of the Mid-City West Neighborhood Council, representing the Miracle Mile, Melrose, and Fairfax area. I was advised never to begin testimonying with, "What the heck are you thinking?" So I'm going to try to be a little bit more diplomatic in this and just say the neighborhood councils were formed to serve as a conduit between the city and the residents in an area because your districts are so big and we're in theory supposed to be there to help serve as part of that communication. In some cases, neighborhood councils have chosen to be the neighborhood councils of no. We don't act that way. Much of our effort has been to try to fill in the gap and provide services to the community. And we see when we do these activities, we see actually that we're able to get matching funds from local businesses. So for instance, when we've helped build up, repair the athletic field at Fairfax High School, or clean up the graffiti on Melrose, or even put together the Miracle Mile Art Walk, which Rebecca will talk about in a moment, it's because this seed money that you provide us helps us do that. And if we lose this, we will lose all of that. There's got to be other ways, and I will just close with this. If you want to talk about the rollover money, we're fine. If you want to talk about maybe centralizing some of the services so that each of us don't have to keep doing the same services over and over again and pay money, that would save you money and save us time as well. We look forward to working with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rebecca Verstraeten McPherson from Mid-City West Council. Among all the wonderful humanitarian things that all of these councils are doing, they are also assisting and engaging the community and business and helping develop that. In 2005, a USC master's thesis was written on the museums and art galleries in the Miracle Mile area, wondering why it had not created its own economic aggregate, which usually happens in situations like that. Well, at the same time, not even knowing that, the Mid-City West Council launched a Miracle Mile art walk, starting to try to gather the museums and galleries which had not communicated before among the different levels. And then eventually the galleries started working together in ways they had not before. High-level galleries that would not even speak to some of the lower-level galleries. Almost all of the restaurants in the area have donated receptions. Businesses are gathering around it. And so today, 3 years later, we have quite a change. The financial base is Mid-City West Council, and they cannot do it without our budget. And so while this economic aggregate is closer to a reality today than it has been before, if this does not happen, our art walks will close as of the beginning of this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. And while Paul's coming up, we have Jacoberger, Dr. Clyde Williams, Joanne Yavana Garb, and also Heinrich Kiefer.
Chairman Parks, members of the committee, my name is Paul Koretz. I'm a member of the Mid-City West Council Policy Committee. Also, I strategized the original creation of the neighborhood councils with Joel Wax and Greg Nelson a number of years ago. And we all know their importance. They empower the community, they coordinate the activities of thousands of volunteers, and on and on. The question is, what is our goal in making these cuts? I think if we're asking for a 10% cut, our goal is to try and solve the budget crisis. If we're asking for an almost 80% cut, I think our goal is to try and eviscerate the neighborhood council system. And I don't think we should be doing that. We have to find a compromise that allows the neighborhood councils to continue to work without these draconian cuts. I don't say it lightly because I'm hoping to join you all here in a few weeks, but I think the value of neighborhood councils is considerably greater than the modest savings that we're looking at achieving by these terrible cuts. Now is not the time for residents to feel less empowered by this action. Please say no to it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Jacoberger. I'm Vice Chair of the Mid-City West Community Council. I would just like to echo what other people have said about the importance of neighborhood councils in providing conduits for information from the city to the people. For example, at our neighborhood council meeting later tonight, we have a representative from the Zero Waste Program to provide information to our community about this important project that will get the word out to more people than would otherwise be the case. As was mentioned, we try to provide seed money for projects that will be magnified, that would magnify the impact of the limited amount of money we have. I would just like to add one thing about tapping into the City Clerk's Fund, Elections Fund. Our neighborhood is 80% renters, and before in the last round when the city clerk sent out mailings, we actually got greater recruitment of candidates because we actually had mailings that got to people who live in apartments, whereas under the previous system where all we had was walking man distribute flyers, we had a hard time getting to the people who live in the multifamily dwellings. Thank you.
Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, LA 32 stakeholder. I am not part of our board because our board is probably one of the youngest boards in the entire neighborhood council system, and they don't need the gray hair. I come from Berkeley, 1966 to 76. So rather than being for 45,000, let's not be for 50,000, not for 45,000, not for 15,000. Let's keep the current budget and add 30,000 a year per council so that the councils do the special events, which you approved $25,000 just today. And every time I've been in council, another 25, another 25. This is the function of the neighborhood councils. We do it also. So it's kind of a double dipping here. Keep the special events in the neighborhood councils and keep them from being subservient to the council members themselves and the city departments. Not 50,000, 80,000. Thank you.
I'm Joanne Yavana Garb. I'm with West Hills Neighborhood Council. Los Angeles can be quite an intimidating city with its sum of people as well as the space that it covers. But when you instituted this, the neighborhood councils, it became a more manageable process for many people. People will come to a community meeting, they might not come to here. If you took the talent just from our board alone, we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have accountants, we have PR people, we have a lot of different professional people. You couldn't afford just to do our salaries if we had to charge you for the salary. So I think that keeping our budget at $45,000, if you have to take a cut, take it to $45,000. But what we do with our work, it's too important. Thank you.
We have Heinrich Kiefer. Okay. James Walker. Damian Goodman. Dr. Wiseman, you have 2 cards in, and we're just going to have public comment, so we'll call you up, and also Chris Rowe.
My name is Father Lee Walker. I'm a Area 3 representative of my neighborhood council, the Empowerment Congress West Area Neighborhood Development Council. I'm a resident of Leimert Park. On behalf of my council, I want to say we have discussed this. We would ask you to keep us at a minimum at $45,000. I'm not going to take up your time repeating all the other good things that have already been said by other people. I now speak personally on my own behalf. I just finished completely remodeling my house with the intention of continuing to live in Leimert Park, where I've lived for 10 years for the rest of my life. It's right. The $50,000 you've given us, we are giving back to the city of Los Angeles a lot more than that in what we do and with our free time and the upgrading of our neighborhoods and the increasing of the quality of our children's lives. I also ask you, if you're going to demand this kind of sacrifice from us, please lead us by example. I would like to see you voluntarily cut your salaries, which are the highest for city council members in the United States. Lead me by example and I will follow. Otherwise, you are not members of my team. You are simply trying to be overlords and make me do the sacrifice.
Mr. Chairman, I come to the mic to thank you. Because of you, neighborhood councils throughout this city have come together in this hall, building relationships and strategizing how to best reform City Hall. Today, you have rallied the city like you've rallied I, an 8th District citizen, and many others many times to fight something you are doing. Last month, it was Parker Center. Today, it is your proposed evisceration of the neighborhood council system. Every now and then, council member, you provide for the entire city a picture of what we endure as your constituents. Legendary and unprecedented are your attacks on 8th District nonprofits, community organizations, community leaders, people who do the job they do to compensate for your failures as a council member. It's only natural you'd extend it to the neighborhood council system. It would be a mistake, my friends, to expect this to be an isolated incident. At the root of this move by Bernard C. Parks are 2 things: power and accountability. He can never have enough of the former, and he hates the latter.
Chris Rowe, no, Dr. Wiseman. Dr. Wiseman here.
Yeah, he's coming.
Before she starts, the comments need to be directed to the committee as a whole and not to any individual committee members.
All right. Hello, my name is
Chris Rowe. I'm from the West Hills Neighborhood Council, and I've been recently elected as the vice chair of the Santa Susana Mountain Area Committee. About a year ago, I was just a community advocate, environmental and public health advocate, working primarily on the Santa Susana Field Lab. And the board of the West Hills Neighborhood Council asked me to join. In the past year, I've been asked by two people that were running for office to be their environmental representatives, and I found that very highly complimentary. Other people have asked me, why don't you start a 501c3 to do your work in the community? And what I have said to myself is, I like being a neighborhood council person. I like the role that I'm putting in where I represent the community. I have to listen to both sides. We look at business and we look at the community members both as stakeholders, and we weigh things over and over again. We reach out to our council members and we try to work together with you. And all I'm asking for is respect. Thank you.
Thank you. While Dr. Wiseman is coming up, we have Ida Talala, Anthony Manzano, Patricia Berman, and Russell Brown.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my fellow neighborhood council stakeholders, it's very difficult to say anything more than has already been said. You've heard me before on many occasions. The good work that the city neighborhood councils do is going to be expounded on quite a bit by Mr. Bong Hwan Kim, the general manager of Dunn, I believe right after the conclusion of these comments. I do want to go back to the Tran and tell you and my fellow colleagues of the 5 months of deficit that this city lives in every year, of $1 billion loaned and paid back every year that we will not be able to afford next year, that we will have to make adjustments. Last week, you asked Mr. Nahai of the DWP if he was aware of what the 8% request was, and he said yes. You asked him if it would injure his department's problems, and he said no. I believe we should ask the Department of Water and Power to give that $232 million to the city in the month of July in order to defray some of those deficits that go from July to December. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. My name is Ida Talala. I am a representative, District 1, Greater Echo Park Elysian Neighborhood Council. Despite the neighborhood council, I'm here speaking as a stakeholder and as a district representative. Despite the neighborhood council, Echo Park is a dynamic community. At our neighborhood council level, bylaws are violated, Robert's rules discarded, amongst other things. Getting monies from the neighborhood council is like trying to hit a moving target while standing on a mat of Jell-O gone bad. In 2006, I only got 20% of the monies that had been awarded. I had been to several meetings, budget meetings, and had done all of my needed footwork. I apologize. No funding unless there is accountability both by Dunn and the neighborhood councils. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day, committee chair. My name is Anthony Manzano. I'm a board member of the Los Angeles 32 Neighborhood Council. I sit on the Public Safety Committee and Membership and Outreach Committee, and I'm also certified and a Los Angeles Neighborhood Preparedness Ambassador. I understand the importance of everyone taking a cut, but cutting our funding can possibly endanger lives. I support the mayor's 10% budget across the board, and I would also support my council members' objection to the amount of this drastic cuts. I'd like for you guys to go to the zoo and cut close to 80% of the funding there, and you'll have giraffes, iguanas, monkeys, and zebras asking you for help. We are the leaders of the community all across this great city. As you've heard the leaders speak before me, we know what to do. We have a vision, and here's an opportunity to give you guys a solution so you guys could look like a hero. Take from 80% of our budget cuts and say, you know what, promote it and tell everybody, look what we're going to do for you, Just take 20% of our money, the 10% that's budgeted across for everybody else, and the other 10%, get more staff at Dunn. Get more people that's going to help us out, and get city planners to help us do the best job we can do to provide the best service for the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
My name is Patricia Berman. I'm Vice President of Outreach and Communication for the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. I've been with the council just this term, but I've been working with the council for 7 years since we got it started. I'm very grateful that we have been allowed to do the work we've been doing, but I think it's really important that you understand the entire fiscal impact of the neighborhood councils. I personally put in about 15 hours a week into community work without being paid. That right there should take care of a good part of what you don't want to give us this year. I know that there are so many other people. I don't know what the absolute numbers are, but we probably have 50 or 60 people in our community working either on or with the neighborhood council that also put in a great number of hours. Consider what you will lose if we do not put in these hours, if there is no vehicle for us to do your work for you. Give us what we need just to get by. $45,000 is not that much money on your budget. Thank you.
Thank you. While Russell is coming up, we have General Jeff, Yvonne, Michelle Artry, Algie Lee, Alexa Turan, and Sarah Ramsock Wak.
Good afternoon. Russell Brown, Downtown LA Neighborhood Council. I handed in a packet that also has this information here, and it has all of our success stories of what we've done in our budget. I will ask you to look at that and figure out a single department that can make as much happen on the little amount of money that we have. 10 years ago, if you remember, LA was in crisis because the majority of the city thought that the city was dysfunctional, didn't listen, didn't have its act together, and couldn't spend money correctly. We almost broke apart as a city through secession, and the way to change that was to have grassroots folks involved and work with partners. Today, you are very willing to not have learned any lesson from that secession movement and destroy all of those solutions. I cannot imagine a place where you would have hundreds of volunteers who are giving all of their time and effort and contributing even out of their own pocket, and your reward is to say, no thank you. Today is the time for you to say, we made a mistake and we are willing to go back and work as partners with everybody in the neighborhood council. The neighborhood councils are your partners in the schools, the parks, the LAPD, and the neighborhoods. The question should not be how much should we cut, but should be why is the value of this grassroots participation so insignificantly valued? The choice is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is General Jeff. I'm on the Downtown Los Angeles Board, I'm on the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. I'm also a community activist for Skid Row. Now, as a community activist, I can tell you firsthand how bad Skid Row needs money. They need funding bad. We need, a matter of fact, we need our own neighborhood council. So even then, $50,000 wouldn't be enough. So we have to rely on the percentage of the budget that comes to the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. Now, in Skid Row, we have a lot of positive programs and projects that have started from the grassroots standpoint, like the Skid Row 3-on-3 Basketball League that was recognized in these very chambers. The Skid Row Photography Club, whose cameras donated from D-Link have allowed them to be on 5 out of the last 6 downtown art walks. We've got Skid Row Chess Club, we've got a Skid Row theater group called Drama Stage Qumran, and these are just examples of some of the few projects that have got their seed money from the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. And to reduce the budget, not only would you be killing off the neighborhood councils, but you'd also be killing off the positive programs in Skid Row.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Yvonne and I am a stakeholder. I work and I live downtown. I've been in attendance of D-Link meetings for about a year now, thanks to my friend General Jeff. And, earlier I heard Mr. Cardenas and Mr. LaBranche express their love. I mean, do you love us? Can you show your love? But I'm saying, no, really, put your emotion into use the authority that you have. With so much money being given to the police department, this should not become an experiment in a police state where only the wealthy have the most authority. They're being policed and they're being protected. Please continue to empower the neighborhood city council so they can provide the very vital services that they are providing. I've been witness to the monies that they have provided, not only for the programs that Jeff has mentioned, but
Ma'am, you got to talk in the mic or else we can't hear.
for other vital programs to help those who are disadvantaged, church-related events. I participated in many of these events. With those cuts, those would be disabled, and I really think that you could, like I said, if you love us, show it. Don't just talk it. That's hypocritical.
Thank you very much.
My name is Angela. I'm from the Central Area Neighborhood Council in the middle of the 8th District. And we're putting safety and security cameras in Jacoberger, Harvard Park. Now, in this swimming complex, we have to have some safety cameras because our kids are the most energetic kids in the world. I've seen them climb cyclone fences with the gates open. And so we need the cameras because when they have accidents, a lot of times they won't report them. And so with the cameras, we can see it and then we can get them the proper treatment. And so we also need the security cameras because we have found guns, in the sandboxes, where the kids play, because we have, this is a life and death situation, and so therefore we need, our first estimate is $22,000, and we need the money in order to complete this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexia Teran. I live in Cypress Park. I'm on the board of the Greater Cypress Neighborhood Council. I have been involved with the neighborhood council movement since before the charter. I am a homeowner. I have lived in Cypress Park for 42 years. I do know my community quite well. I have volunteered for the schools. I belong to the organizations in 3 organizations in Cypress Park. Board member of the Greater Cypress Park Neighborhood Council, president for Friends of the Library, and also an improvement association. I am advocating for this committee to be empathetic, understanding, and reasonable to neighborhood councils. We are working in our community as volunteers. We are educating our stakeholders about citywide issues, community improvement, security and emergency preparedness, and any other matters of importance to the stakeholders. The mayor has asked for a 10% across the board. We are okay with that. We want to do our share. There are city entities which could afford to be a little bit more careful with their funds. Those are the ones that this committee should be looking at to adjust. Please be reasonable, understanding, and empathetic. Thank you.
Thank you. While Sarah is coming up, we'd ask Leonard Schaefer, Ron Kay, Barbara Burke, Tony Wilkerson, John Lieberman, and Cindy Cleghorn. Yes.
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to participate in this discussion. My name is Sarah Ramsawak. I am from the North Hollywood Northeast Neighborhood Council. I work as the outreach chairperson for that council, and I am also the facilitator of a very large and strong neighborhood watch. I'm very concerned about the suggested severity of the cuts for our council system. I too join the chorus of saying, do not wipe us out. We certainly understand that if we're all in the same boat together, we should share a certain amount of discomfort. The 10%, I think, is sufficient discomfort, considering all the things that the council does. I was interested when President Obama said recently that help us to find the truth, even if it is only an approximation. which led me to think, I wonder how much of the city deficit is an approximation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ron Kay. I'm not a member of a neighborhood council, but I do believe in community empowerment. And I think you've done more to help the neighborhood council system in the last week than in the last 10 or 15 years. Charter reform came up as an idea to create elected and empowered neighborhood councils and was derailed by the city hall power structure. Instead, we got the advisory system. The city wouldn't be in the shape it's in today, and the neighborhoods would be healthier if we'd had empowered neighborhood councils, if for the last 10 years City Hall had supported them, worked to get them empowered, organized, and strengthened. Instead, we now have the crisis that we're now facing, and we are continuing to treat the neighborhood councils and the people of the city with disrespect. You have the power to change that. You are not going to stop the grassroots movement that's out there. I've seen it grow over the last 15, 20 years. It's real. These people are real. They're fighting for their city, and you need to help them make it work for all of us.
Barbara Monahan Burke. I'm from the Studio City Neighborhood Council, but speaking formally as the Neighborhood Council budget representative from the South Valley, one of two, to the mayor. Last night, our group of citywide NC budget representatives unanimously approved the following motion in support of a $45,000 budget for each NC. That is the 10% cut, as is in line with the cuts for City Council and the Mayor, as the Mayor has asked. 2, no sweep of Neighborhood Council monies. That is, no taking of any Neighborhood Council rollover monies. Your special accounts are not rolled over. Are not swept away. And no payment by the NCs for the city clerk's handling of the elections. Your elections, the mayor's elections, the city attorney elections, do not get charged to you. It's to the city clerk. We ask you to forward the Neighborhood Councils the respect that the city charter provides to them, to us, in both spirit and intent. And as an example of this, I'm sad to say, it's very hard for me to be in two places today. The Plum Committee on the billboards and signage is simultaneous with this committee. I've asked to speak at both places. Very hard for all these neighborhood councils to be there, so I wish the scheduling could have been better. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tony Wilkinson. I'm the chair of the Panorama City Neighborhood Council, but I'm here today as an individual. And one of the things that I'm concerned about, all of us are part of the city family, and we're as worried as you about the situation we're in. I think that how it's perceived is maybe a big part of it. One of your members is a friend of Panorama City. North Hills has a lot of the same problems that we do. It's not necessarily about community benefit funds versus city employees. It's about the cost of neighborhood empowerment, grassroots democracy. There is no other organization in Panorama City. We have no chamber, we have no Rotary. We've been able to bring the community together because of the Neighborhood Council. This is an example of the kind of empowerment that these modest funds make. And I really ask that not only do you not cut these, but be very concerned if we take some from the city clerk, we make certain that we get all the funds necessary to run the city election properly. The city clerk is already threatening not to do the second mailer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Lieberman. I'm with the South Robertson Neighborhoods Council. I've been on that council since it was chartered 6 years ago. I'm their vice president. I just want to take the little time you've allowed us to basically say two things. First of all, we're a diverse board. We have 19 members. If by extension you take the other 190, or the other 90 neighborhood council, you've got 1,700 volunteers. If their boards are similar to ours, they represent students, teachers, educators. We have vice principals. We have the second in command of a world-class museum. You know, it sounds strange, but basically the system works. And I'd like you to consider that when you consider the funding, because it works. You can keep it going, or you can eviscerate it. Thank you.
Just a minute, Ms. Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I do need to go over to the Plum Committee, which I'm also a member, and we are going to listen right now to the signage ordinance, and I need to go over there. I hope to be back for the discussion, but I do want to say that I did express concern about the disproportionate cut at the last hearing, and I hope that we come up to a solution today that could get us near or at the 10% recommended cut, and I hope to be back to express that during the discussion here in these chambers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Cindy Cleghorn, and I'm with the Summa-Tahunga Neighborhood Council. I serve as secretary. I just want to let you know that we, as neighborhood councils, do a lot of the work that your staffs don't have the time or not enough of you to go around. We're partners in this, and we want to continue to be your partners as we work together towards a good city. Restore our budget, and let's continue to be good partners, and don't shoot yourselves in the foot. Thank you.
Let me call Leonard Schaefer again. Is he still here? Okay. Lark Gilliam, Ziggy Kraus, Alfred, is it Alexander, Terry Anderson, Doug Epperhart.
Good afternoon. My name is Lark Galloway Gilliam. I am the chair of the Empowerment Congress West Area Neighborhood Council. I'm here today to once again plead with you to be reasonable about the expectations that you're placing on these neighborhood councils. These councils represent perhaps the most powerful aspect of government in this city. It is the place where people are actually engaged. I know I've made a tremendous sacrifice today by staying here. There are not too many people who can get down to City Hall on a regular basis to express their issues and concerns and to hear about the resources and decisions that you're making. Our neighborhood councils provide that venue. It is a place in which government is happening at the local level. When I think about this money, I have to remember that it came out of my purse. And so what I'm asking you to do is to allow us to have some local say about how those monies are spent in our communities. You have to realize that as taxpayers, we give a lot to you in terms of the decisions you are making. We want to use that $50,000 a year to make sure the unmet needs in our community are met, such as the Summer Nights program and the improvements in our streets and our sidewalks and the programs for our youth that are otherwise left to gang activity. It's not too much to ask that you give us back a little bit of our investment from the city. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Ziggy Cruz. I'm on the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council. I'm the correspondent secretary as well as a board member. I gave you guys a prepared letter that I handed out. I was going to go and repeat some of this, which would be kind of redundant since everybody has said what they were saying before, and it's all already in the records. Now, one statement I would like to make on behalf of our neighborhood council is that Mr. Smith at one of the previous meetings said that the neighborhood council should all share a burden like everybody else does in the city, and we're all ready to do that. We're all ready to take the equality in there, but your proposed budget is not equal. It is anything else but. You were mentioning as a committee prior to it that we are the go-to people in the community. If you take us out, all the people are ending up at your doorsteps and they're not being served, which we have experienced ourselves. One thing that I did want to put out is that with the funding that we received since we were elected in 2007 or certified in 2007, we have been managing a yearly annual multicultural holiday party in our district. Last year we served close to 700 people, 700 children that received each and every one of them either a toy, sporting good, something that was donated by the community, but mostly, hosted by the neighborhood council. If you cut us down to what you want to do, all these kids will not have that. Lastly, and I wrap it up after this, if you don't like the mayor's budget, make it better.
Don't make it worse. Just say, well, we don't like the 45,000, we don't like the 10%, we need the NCs, we want to support them, we want to give them whatever they need to do to get it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Alfredo Hernandez, East Hollywood Neighborhood Council. I'm not going to list off everything that we do. I'm sure that you are all aware that neighborhood councils do a lot of great work. But I will let you know that at $50,000, that gives us about $1 per person that we service in my neighborhood council. At $11,000, that's about 20 cents a person. You know what that does to me? That crushes my soul. And I'm sure it crushes everybody else's soul that is involved with neighborhood council. So I ask you to please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Terry Anderson, President of the Greater Valley Glen Neighborhood Council. Let me just note, and put my prepared comments aside, what I see here today, I see your neighborhood speaking. I see the success of neighborhood councils. This is something this council and this committee should be very proud of. Look around this room. All the different types of people, all the different types of professions. This means neighborhood councils are working. This city made a commitment to neighborhood councils to reinvent urban democracy. That commitment, that reinvention is working. Keep at it. Keep it going. Don't let us down. Don't let the city down. Now, I know we have a train wreck of a budget crisis. Let's not make a second train wreck by destroying and wrecking neighborhood councils. Keep the city's commitment, keep the reinvention working, keep neighborhood councils, and keep them in a form and shape that they can be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. While Doug is coming up, let me ask Jerome Williams, Jack Hawthorne, Kelly Lord, Doug DeWiggins, Dennis DeYoung, and Mary Kaufman. Yes, sir.
My name is Doug Epperhart. I am the longest-serving neighborhood council board member in the city of Los Angeles. I have been doing this since February of 2002. There is a word you have not heard here today, and that is the word experiment. We are no longer an experiment. We are here in force. We represent 4 million Angelenos, and we do it well with very little money. $45,000 is the lowest acceptable amount for these groups. 50 would be better. And the rollover funds need to stay where they are. Next year we'll be hit with an even bigger deficit. At that point, I think you should start talking to us early, not at the last minute. I would say, too, to you that over the last 7 years, I've realized neighborhood councils exist because of the secession movement. The day would come when you forget it and we remember it. I think we're there.
Good afternoon. My name is Jerome Williams. I am the president of the Greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council. Our nation's president, Barack Obama, has asked us to what he called a call to service. I personally believe that neighborhood councils exemplify exactly what our nation's president has asked us to do. Thank you. Neighborhood councils perform vital services throughout the greater Los Angeles area that serves the needs of numerous communities, the city and the mayor. It acts as an intermediary between government and the stakeholders that it serves. At its core, there are approximately 1,500 to 1,800 volunteers that give of their time and expertise for the betterment of Los Angeles. Neighborhood councils use their limited resources to support the improvement of local schools, businesses, police and fire, churches, and other organizations, and the list goes on and on. By reducing our budget to such an amount, as I've heard, $11,200, that will not only inhibit the efforts of neighborhood councils to serve their communities, but will render them ineffective. I urge you and your colleagues to demand that the current funding of $50,000 per year remain intact. Respectfully, Jerome G. Williams, President, Greater Toluca Lake Neighborhood Council.
Thank you.
My name is Jack Comfortville. I wrote the opposition argument for Measure B. I'm here not to talk about why you ought to give the neighborhood councils a raise. I'm here to talk about fool's gold. The sale of capital assets to pay operating expenses for the city of Los Angeles is sheer lunacy and bad finance. The buyers have a significantly higher cost of capital that are going to require them to raise our rates every year so they have increasing revenues. These assets will be subject to vandalism. That's what happened in Chicago. That's Chicago finance for you. We've talked about retaining independent advisors. That's a bunch of hooey. We have 4 politically connected firms that are interested in nothing but fees, and more fees, and contingent fees. Do you think they're going to tell the guys that hired them that they're off base? They are investment bankers. They are financial consultants who are paid to do these deals. They are not independents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis DeYoung and Steve Patel, who's probably in the next group of speaker cards, who represent the presidents of Northridge East and Northridge West, were here for approximately 4.5 hours and had to leave a few minutes ago. They asked me if I would just come up here and let you know that they were here, they're concerned, and they wanted to be counted in.
What is your name, ma'am?
Excuse me?
I didn't hear your name.
My name is Judith Daniels.
Okay.
I'm going to be speaking later. Okay. But they just wanted you to know that they were here and that they had to leave and that they're concerned about the budget.
Dennis DeYoung, and what was the other name?
Steve Patel.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Kaufman. I am one of the newly elected members to the Chatsworth Neighborhood Council. Prior to that time, I have been a very active stakeholder in the Neighborhood Council. The Chatsworth Neighborhood Council faces a unique variety of problems. We've had the Metrolink crash, we've had fires, and the council puts a lot of the monies back into the community. That's what you've heard from all of these neighborhood councils today, or from the majority of them. Both President Obama and President Kennedy have asked us to give back to our country, give back to our community. You have more than enough volunteers here that are willing to do that have made the commitment to do that. But they need funding to be able to do that. And when you cut our funding, you take away that power. So I'm asking you, please don't cut our funding. If you need to, don't take it below the $45,000, but it would be far better to leave it at the $50,000. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Kelly Lord, Don DeWiggins, Christopher Cooper, Judith Daniels, you were just here, Noel Weiss, and Jill Banks Barad.
I'm here to speak for Chris Cooper.
Okay, what is your name?
My name is Saul.
So did you put a card in?
Daniels.
Did you put a card in?
I have his statement.
Okay.
He's
when you get finished,
fire department.
When you get finished, would you put out a card, because we have his card, but we also need one from you. So you're going to read a statement?
This is his statement.
All right, well, I need a card from you when you get finished.
When you finish, write a card.
Okay.
Fine. Fine. I'm speaking on behalf of Chris Cooper, a L.A. Fire Department captain who was called away to deal with a death in his department. I'm speaking for the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. Though the actions of the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council over the last 3 years, through those actions, they've been able to contribute to the community over $80,000 in public safety, education, and beautification. Combined with the in-kind volunteer hours contributed by their board and community members, they've made a significant difference in the community. The Porter Ranch area has achieved reductions in crime, such as dealing with illegal street racing, graffiti removal, and traffic regulation. They recognize the city has a severe budget problem. They want to absorb their portion of that. However, a 78% reduction in neighborhood council program funding is far beyond what they see as their share, and therefore, they urge the City Council Budget and Finance Committee to ensure that the combined efforts can continue by funding each one of the groundbreaking neighborhood councils at no less than $45,000 this fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you. So you get a card from the Sergeant of Arms. Thank you.
I'm Judith Daniels. I'm the president of the Chatsworth Neighborhood Council. With all due respect, you folks are being ridiculous. If I handed you a check for $50,000, you could not buy the salary and benefits for one city employee. But if you hand me a check for $50,000, I will hand to you doctors, lawyers, CPAs, teachers, one LAPD officer, MBAs, small business owners, even a few equestrians, and some people who have only a high school degree. We are not unionized. We are not asking you for overtime, for benefits. You are getting so much more out of us than you could out of a city employee. You are being ridiculous. I personally am responsible for $2,000 worth of city money, taxpayer money, being spent after the Chatsworth Metrolink crash. I made sure, I live 2 blocks from that crash, and I was out there helping, and I am responsible for approximately 1,000 full meals being provided for Los Angeles police officers and other first responders. It costs $2,000 of taxpayer money, and we provided 1,000 meals because we paid and also got a lot of stuff donated. And I got a lot of thanks for that, not personally, but as part of the neighborhood council. You should be coming to us, giving us more money, because your $50,000 goes more with us than it does anywhere else in the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, stole my thunder. Councilman, my name is Noel Weiss. I really think it's amazing that this city council would think so little of the people that they could try to psych them out in this way by artificially, rather than just being direct and saying, well, gee, maybe we need to reduce it more than the 45, but instead you go to 11,000, figuring, okay, in the end we'll raise it up to 35 and everybody will feel great. That's not being honest, that's not being direct, that's not fair, it's not right. Bottom line is, if we're talking about people, you people, all of the time, you sit and you listen to each other. You do not listen to the people. What you have in the neighborhood councils is a rare resource, a valuable resource. If you talk to them more, you would appreciate it. And the fact of the matter is, I think if you end up, and it's unfortunate that you're going to have to cut staff, but the bottom line is, when you do make those cuts, guess what's going to happen? The neighborhood councils are going to pick up the slack, and they're going to be more than adequate to the task, because they believe in the power of ideas and they believe in the power of the people. The 45 should absolutely remain.
Thank you.
Chairman Parks and members of the committee. I'm Jill Banks-Barad, and I'm here speaking for the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. I'm the president, and I'm also founder and chair of the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils. The neighborhood councils, as you have heard, are willing to be part of the shared sacrifice and take a 10% cut in our yearly budget. But to propose that we accept an almost 80% cut would be disproportionate and would drastically reduce our ability to outreach to our communities to achieve our goal of bringing the city closer to the people and deliver critical constituent needs. Los Angeles is now facing a serious budget deficit. That's why neighborhood councils are needed now more than ever. Neighborhood councils can share resources with the city to deliver the critical constituent services to our neighborhoods. We can split the cost with the city to fix potholes in streets, trim trees, and even rent our own sweet streeters. We can continue to help fund libraries, organize emergency preparedness programs. Please, it's time to show your commitment to the neighborhood council system. Let us keep our $45,000. Let us keep our rollovers, and please let us work together to move our city forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go over a couple of names that we called earlier and to see if they're still here. Leonard Schaefer, Mahi Jones, Heinrich Kiefer, Kelly Lord.
Had to go to work.
Okay, we'll put those in file. Pardon? Malia Jones? Is she here? Pardon? Okay, you can't speak for her. If you put in a card, you can speak for yourself. Okay, but you've already spoken. Okay, but you can't speak in behalf of someone else. Okay, we can't trade time, but you can give us a document if you want to have us have access to the material. Okay, thank you.
Buddy now?
I'm going to call in just a second.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We have Don DeWiggins, Anthony St. John, Linda Drew Matters, Christine Ahasi, and Larry Taylor. We have Mr. DeWiggins, we called him earlier. Okay. Anthony St. John.
He had to leave. He left. Anthony St. John left.
They left? Okay. Linda Udex? Okay. Linda Drew Mathers.
Yes. Hello, Chairman Parks and the rest of the committee. My name is Lydia Drew Mather. I'm the president of Van Nuys Neighborhood Council. The $50,000 that we've been getting is probably the most transparent money that you can account for coming out of the city budget. 100 pennies out of every dollar goes directly to where it's supposed to, not squandered in bureaucracy. I was going to support the notion that we only take the 10% cut like everybody else to $45,000, but someone mentioned that we never got a cost of living over the last 4 years. So maybe we've, given about 16% retroactively already. So maybe our $50,000 should remain intact as the best spent money this city can come up with. I think doing anything less is not only anti-constituent, it's anti-city, and I wonder why this chamber is filled at all. I represent 87,000 people in Van Nuys, and we'd like to keep our money and continue to support our schools, our LAPD, all the programs, vet development projects, good and bad, to see that some are built and some are not, and do the work that the council offices don't have time or budget to do at all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Gassi, South Robertson Neighborhoods Board Member and co-chair of our Outreach Committee. In a city as large as Los Angeles is, I offer to you that the neighborhoods are the lifeblood of Los Angeles for cohesive, healthy, vibrant social and economic growth and prosperity. We are collectively what makes LA livable. We are all volunteers. Many of our members spend as many as 20-plus hours a month working on issues for the NC. That is a remarkable return on your investment of the time and energy to improve the communities in which we live. And as an example, in South Robertson, we've established a banner program to help brand our community, once just a pass-through. We've created a merchant program to increase awareness of our local businesses among the people who live and work in South Robertson. We've established Sorrow Walks at 7, a program oriented towards opening doors, getting exercise, and spending time with your neighbors. And we have developed a school mentoring program and created and funded programs for the Robertson Athletic Activity League, which were in direct response to gang murders of our neighborhood youth. So as you consider our budget, please ask who you will contact when you need to foster relationships with LA's neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. As Mr. Taylor comes up, let me ask also Eric Mansker, Nancy Woodruff, Nora McClellan, Billy Hayes, Cecilia Moreno, and Cindy Hinch.
My name is Larry Taylor. I'm a member of the West LA Neighborhood Council. And the reason why you need to support neighborhood councils is the opposite of local is remote. A 77.6% cut in our budget means that you're destroying the relationship, destroying a whole level of government. We're out there meeting the people. You need intermediate intermediary institutions for a city this large to connect with your own neighborhoods.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eric Mansker, and I'm with the Granada Hills South Neighborhood Council. And I represent that council here today, and we are opposed to any reduction in neighborhood council funding. During the last 7 years, when this city was undergoing the boom of the housing industry, nobody asked us if we'd like to have an increase. But then things turned sour, and all of a sudden they want to come to us and say, well, you got to take a hit like the rest of us. But where was our hit when things were going good? So how about being fair? As many people have said here today, why should we take a hit? You're not taking a hit. If you took all of these neighborhood councils together and took their budgets, I bet you not one of you could run your offices in your districts with all of that put together. We are the most efficient neighborhood council organization in the city. We have an army of over 4 million volunteers. Cross us, and you will feel the wrath of all 4 million.
My name is Cindy Hench. I'm with the Westchester Played Neighborhood Council, and ditto what everybody has said here today. It's been a long time. I've enjoyed 4 hours with my fellow neighborhood council people here today, and I got to tell you, if you guys are still thinking about an 80% cut in funding, you haven't been listening. The amount of volunteerism and passion in this room is shocking to me, and how you could turn it off with a pen is scary, is very scary. If I were on this committee, I would be looking for ways to give this group a raise, because this is a really amazing group of volunteers who are doing amazing things in the city, and without them, there's not a lot of good reasons to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Cecilia Moreno, and I am the chair of the very first certified neighborhood council in the city, the Wilmington Neighborhood Council. And I'd like to thank Councilwoman Hahn for her passionate representation of neighborhood councils. I'm here representing the voice of the stakeholders of the Wilmington community that are unable to attend today's meeting, but elected 19 of us to represent them. We'd like to state that we recognize the critical situation the city faces. We are your partners in this situation, and we're willing to work with you to compromise on funding challenges that relate to neighborhood councils. We are disappointed, however, with the proposal under consideration, which appears to be random and would devastate the ability to continue to do our work. We believe the neighborhood councils should be viewed like other city departments. They've been asked to cut 10% in their budgets. We're willing to do the same, but no more than that. We know that you can make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. I called earlier Nora McClellan, Billy Hayes, and Nancy Woodruff. Okay. Next would be John Stinson, Mary Garcia, Mark Reddick, Terry Tippett, and is it Dana Nolan?
My name is John Stinson. I'm the treasurer on Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council. Mr. Chair, committee members, by proposing a level of funding that you have proposed for neighborhood councils, I think really sends the wrong message to the people of Los Angeles. It would probably reinforces the idea that the city of Los Angeles, especially its government, does not want to listen, doesn't listen, and increases the perception of a government that is uncaring and aloof. Frankly, you will have the opportunity, however, to do the right thing. You really will. You've heard what it is. We know what it is. Now you know what it is. So we're going to ask you to do the right thing. Provide a level of funding at the level that has been suggested. Don't take the rollovers. And frankly, yes, we should have the city clerk do the job for what they said they could do it for. And we'll all be happy campers, at least for another year. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Garcia. Good early evening. I've been here many, many hours as you have, but not on the same payroll. I'd like to first acknowledge all of the people that came here today, and I wish that in the beginning you would have said to these people, thank you for the democratic process that is happening here today. Thank you for being here to fight for something you believe in, because that's why we're here. And I want to thank Dunn and Bonk for being with us through this. Mary Garcia, Vice President, Midtown North Hollywood Neighborhood Council, 70,000 people. When I had a look today to see how many neighborhood councils were in different areas, I found that 17 were in the North Valley, 17 South Valley, 12 in Los Angeles West, 19 in Los Angeles Central, and 12 in Los Angeles East, 14 in Los Angeles South. So let's get back to the North Valley. $850,000 going into the North Valley. South Valley, $850,000. West Los Angeles, $600,000. East Los Angeles, $600,000 there. $700,000 into South Los Angeles. Now I ask you, are you willing to give this up? Where do you put your $100,000? Can you spread this money around the way that we do and the thousands of hours that we volunteer?
Thank you, ma'am.
Terry Tippett, Chair of the West Side Neighborhood Council, one of the first neighborhood councils formed. I agree with everything that was said, and I want you to know that NCs play a vital role in bringing the communities together. We have worked endless volunteer hours as advocates for our stakeholders. In the last 48 hours, you have received numerous emails from the groups that we are able to help fund their programs and their projects, telling you how much they appreciate what the NCs do, working in partnership with different aspects of our community. They also shared their concerns of what the negative effect it will have on their programs and their projects if our funding is cut. We make up the deficit that they cannot get elsewhere. Another thing I think would be an interesting concept is why not, okay, it's very short, why not have all the city departments funnel their notifications and information items through Dunn, who will then distribute to us instead of piecemeal. Some neighborhood councils get it, some don't. Some council members are more active and community tied to their neighborhood councils. Other council people aren't. Let's get together and get one system that will work, and this will help with your funding as well.
My name's Donna Nolan, and I'm pleased to serve as the Resident Artist Director on the Downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council. I came here today to talk to you, to speak for myself and for the resident artists downtown. And as I've listened to all this, I've decided I'm not going to reiterate all the contributions that the neighborhood councils have made. It should be abundantly obvious by now that they are legion and impossible to duplicate. I will say that if this were a downtown Los Angeles neighborhood council board meeting, probably about an hour and a half ago, one of the very busy people on that board would have said that a mistake has been made. We've rethought this decision and you can all go home.
My name is Mark Reddick. I'm the president of the Delray Neighborhood Council. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for having me. In 1999, Los Angeles voters clearly stated that reform was needed at City Hall. The result was the neighborhood council system that we have today. Quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, the nation's second largest city should have a municipal governance second to none. The neighborhood councils were a first large step towards meeting that goal. The neighborhood council members do not consider public service an undue burden or obligation. Quite to the contrary. We consider public service an honor and an opportunity to serve our stakeholders. Please allow us the opportunity to continue to do so, and together we will continue to build a better city. Our neighborhood council system should be respected, not neglected. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have Lou Watson, Carol White. We have a card from Can Do Neighborhood Council, does not have a name on it. Albert Olson, Lorraine Genovese.
Good afternoon. I'm Lou Watson from Harbor Gateway North Neighborhood Council. I'm a stakeholder, and I was asked by our neighborhood council to give the committee a list of the accomplishments that the neighborhood council has accomplished during the years of our certification. I want to start off by just saying one thing. I want to personally congratulate the chair of this committee for uniting the neighborhood councils as no other issue has. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. White?
Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Carol White, and I am the chair of the Voices of 90037 Neighborhood Council. Now, I pretty much agree with just about everything that has been said here this afternoon, but I just want to tell you a little bit of a story. The Voices of 90037 Neighborhood Council grew out of dissent from a community that was not being served by an existing neighborhood council. I believe we were the first community to petition the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners to decertify our neighborhood council because they were not representing our interests. We pursued this for 2 years. That passion was only amplified when we were certified last year. We have not even finished 1 year of funding. There has not been any consideration for neighborhood councils who do not have any reserve, who do not have any rollover funds. So any consideration of anything less than the $45,000 would for us be in effect a de facto decertification of our neighborhood council again.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, I apologize for not putting my name on that card. My name is Joe Turner.
You know, Joe.
And I'm from Can Do Neighborhood Council. The thing that I've heard everybody up here say some very good things today, and I know I have some good things to say also, but there's something that I think everyone should know. We've had an opportunity to start a Jeopardy program in Los Angeles, in South Los Angeles, I should say, where the grid programs are. As a matter of fact, there's 2 of them out there. We did community cleanups. We have graffiti cleanups. We have police department, help the police department in any way that we possibly can. We have a radio set up there in the neighborhood where we get calls from the county, the city. Anytime there's a fire or flood or whatever, we have radio equipment now to take care of the entire South Los Angeles area, and we do. What I'm asking you to do today is to really look hard at the amount of money that it takes to operate an organization the size that we have. Most of us up here today represent more than 49,000 people. More than. Do you realize if any one of us could bring half of our constituency here, there would not be enough room in this building to take the 20,000 people that you could bring. Please remember that, because we are like the little babe running around the house in a diaper, but we do not want to be thrown out with the water like everybody else. Thank you very much.
Albert Olson, Lorraine Genovese.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Lorraine Genovese. I'm a recently elected board member of the Mid-City Neighborhood Council.
I've become more involved by volunteering my time and coming up with ideas for new projects that have improved the Mink area for our residents and our business owners. An example, I was one of about 15 volunteers on a Sunday morning, who helped paint the facade of one of our convenience stores because the business owner really could not afford to do so at this time. And he was so excited and so impressed with our community's involvement in trying to help him improve the really bad-looking facade of his store. With these proposed reductions of funds, there won't be projects to work on, therefore less volunteers needed. So then, therefore, our numbers will decline. So in effect, what you're doing by wanting to severely cut these funds is a possible dissolution of the neighborhood councils. There will not be any more projects to fund. Thank you.
Thank you. We called earlier Albert Olson. You still there? We have Erica Gallo, Jose Aguilar, Mr. McQuiston. You have two cards in. We're going to have you come up third, and Diane Rosen. Erica Gallo.
Jim McQuiston, Mayor's budget. The mayor has not a 10% cut in his own budget. He's forced this 10% on other people. We've heard the protests, but there's one budget. It wasn't cut, $2,696,941. It was only cut $993,758. It's a $17 million program. It should be a $15 million program with a 10% cut. And I think he's not here right now, but I think Ben better take a look at those figures and correct them, because he said that everyone should share in the pain.
Thank you. We have Erica Gallo, Jose Aguilar.
Okay, I'm very dismayed with his action, and basically what I'm going to say is the draconian slashing of our neighborhood council budgets is the dismantling of our quorum levels citywide, and we understand this is another form of political retaliation. Knowing that, there is a draft that I'm going to submit for the record, basically states that we seek the recall of Mr. Parks, basically disrespecting the neighborhood council. I'm going to submit this for the record. And we have a website, anybodybutbernie.org, if you want to sign up for the petition. Now, I am serious. I have already registered my card volunteers. So if you destroy, because I'm a member of two neighborhood councils, you destroy our neighborhood councils, both Boyle Heights and Lincoln Heights, I will gladly volunteer for the recall. I got nothing better to do than go and circulate petitions for the recall. And I want this known.
Thank you. Diane Rosen.
This was
Erica Gould. We have Erica Gallo. Not here. Diane Rosen. Okay.
Is it good evening?
Good evening.
I'm Diane Rosen. I'm the chair of the Encino Neighborhood Council Planning and Land Use. In reducing the Neighborhood Council funding by 80%, you will be closing down the Neighborhood Council representatives to the City Hall. The neighborhood councils are the face of city government to the stakeholders. We, the neighborhood councils, are the available resource that stakeholders can turn to for information and for help. We have all learned when neighborhood councils unite and act together, the political strength can be decisive. The recent defeat of LA City Measure B, despite strong support and funding from the City Hall is a good example. It's often said that out of crisis comes opportunity. Is this an opportunity for the city to close down neighborhood council representatives at City Hall? Many wonder, is this 80% funding a payback for Measure B? Thank you.
Next. Dr. Rosemary White, Art Sims, Glenn Bailey, Frank Wata, Hugo Garcia.
I'm very happy to be here. My name is Dr. Rosemary White. I represent the Encino Neighborhood Council, and I am the elected chair of the Parks and Open Space and Recreation Committee. The neighborhood councils are sensitive to the present economic situation. However, we want to make sure that you know that the neighborhoods are critical to our well-being and the well-being of the city, particularly in this time of incredible stress and panic. I know I'm a clinical psychologist and I see people in my office who are really hurting. An example of this is in the Parks Committee, Sepulveda Basin. The Sepulveda Basin Recreation Area, 2,400 acres, is within the jurisdiction of the Encino Neighborhood Council Parks Committee. It holds the only officially recognized wildlife area in the city of Los Angeles. We need the healing and the peace of our parks and open space to allow families to come together and communicate to heal. Please do not decimate our funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm truly disturbed when
Would you give your name, sir?
How's that?
Would you give us your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Art Sims from Winnetka Neighborhood Council.
Thank you.
And I'm truly disturbed when I say that when I hear the Budget Committee here saying that they want to cut the neighborhood councils. In fact, I'm asking for they restore the $50,000 plus. With the volunteer work that we've done, and Councilman Smith there, who's part of our community, he falls over into his district, knows well, and I speak with Megan out of your office quite often. We've made quite a few accomplishments, educational, to paying the police department. We've were able to refurbish our medium, in which at one time we had begged the city to restore it, and they just didn't have any money. They gave it to the neighborhood council, and we took care of that. You know, and I think about when the neighborhood council came about because of the secession from the city, because we weren't getting our proper funds. Now, I don't understand why you wanted to destroy this. Is it because you want to kill the neighborhood councils? So I'm asking you to be reasonable and restore the $50,000.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Glenn Bailey. I'm Area 1 representative on the Encino Neighborhood Council, speaking as an individual and actually as an equal opportunity critic, because I can say are neighborhood councils perfect? No, they're not. Is the city of Los Angeles perfect? Heavens no. But I will say that this movement has generated a very impressive collection of people, not just the usual, what I've seen in past decades of just homeowner activists, but a cross-section of folks from every walk and breadth and activity in every community that I've seen in this movement. And I've been to most all of the citywide congresses. I haven't just stayed in the Valley. I've traveled to other parts of the city that I haven't. So this $4.5 million, $1 per resident, and since we represent stakeholders, business and workers, it's 50 cents per stakeholder. And let me just say that that money you could have saved by saying no to special events. Each fiscal year, if you just said no to special events, this would not be an issue.
Thank you.
2
2
Chairperson Park, and honorable committee members. My name is Hugo Garcia. I'm the president of the LA 32 Neighborhood Council. I've been on the Neighborhood Council for 8 years. I've been on the executive board and president for the last 4 years. We're located in Northeast LA, and I think that the proposal to cut 78% of our budget is alarming and unacceptable. We have 21 board members. We have 10 committees with 3 members on each committee, and we have 4 liaisons. That's 55 people who meet regularly. This includes members of committees that are appointed. Where in the world is the city going to get this kind of bang for their buck? I wish you guys could tell me that, because I can't figure it out. And also, as many people have mentioned, neighborhood councils since their inception have filled the gaps in funding toward a wide array, particularly in our neighborhood council, of projects in schools, community-based organizations, city parks and recreation programs, community projects, and other initiatives and other worthwhile ventures. They would not have been able to succeed to the extent that they did without the assistance of our neighborhood council. So basically what I'm saying here is that I agree with that we would accept the 10% hit, but do not discriminate against our neighborhood council, and that we're asking you not cut 1 penny more from our budget than you would from any other department, and also we say no to sweeping of rollover funds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank Wada?
He left.
He left. Ruben Chavez, Darrell Frank, Paul Michael Newman, Jess Reyes Dunn.
It's already falling apart, part of the budget here. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman Parks and distinguished committee members. My name is Ruben Chavez. I'm a board member of the LA 32 Neighborhood Council, which is part of El Sereno, Rose Hills University, and Hillside Village, and I'm also a board member of the Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council. Our neighborhood councils are the foundation of democracy. They are part of our treasured legacy. But we acknowledge that we are in a crisis and that every part of the city, of the family, has to bear its share of the burden. A 78% cut in funding of all 89 neighborhood councils is a slap in the face. Okay? The Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Council supports the mayor's recommendation that the neighborhood councils bear the 10% of the burden. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Derek DJ Frank. I'm with the Reseda Neighborhood Council. And I'm astounded, I say, at how level-headed and reasonable most of the speakers before me have been, considering the outrageousness of this proposal. I mean, the neighborhood councils and Dunn have consistently been treated as a red-headed stepchild of the city council budget. I mean, 7 years, and no increase in our allotment, even though in those 7 years, the city budget has ballooned and fattened up like a pig at a trough. And yet, now we're being asked to accept this 10% decrease in our budget. Now, every job I've ever worked, the best bosses have been the ones that have led by example. My opinion is that when the mayor, every city councilman, and every head of every department in the city of LA says they're willing to take a 7-year rollback on their salary plus a 10% cut in their pay, then we might be willing to accept this 10% cut. But until that happens, I don't think we should accept anything less than the $50,000 allotment that we are currently getting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Tess Reyes-Dunn. I'm Vice Chair of the Youth Committee in Winnetka Neighborhood Council. And I agree with the gentleman that was here from Reseda and Mr. Art Sims also, you are cutting our budget for our kids, and we have a lot going on in Winnetka. We're a small little community, but like I like to say, we're tiny but mighty. And I think that we should have our money and stay at $50,000. We do everything for our kids, and they really enjoy. We just gave some money for our Fab Girls that are going to be performing at our Memorial Park or the Memorial Parade. And I want to let you know that if I agree with him, if all of you here and the council would cut down like 10% of your monies, then we could go ahead. It's a drop in the bucket for you guys. I know you have other money coming in, and that would be helpful to all of us and retain our money, but we need more. Thank you.
No, that's the guy that we asked him to phone and put the monkey, but it takes its number.
Paul Michael Newman. I'm co-chair of the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, which has passed a community impact statement calling for no more than a 10% cut for neighborhood councils. I'm a past staffer for 3 city council offices. I'm very proud of the work I did with those council offices. Similarly, I'm very proud of the work neighborhood councils do. All the things we've discussed, we do in Silver Lake. I want to mention one thing, though, that I haven't really heard, which is that we contact Congress office members, Sacramento. We have a meeting tomorrow night, which is for schools. We've contacted at least, I'd say, 70 schools, public schools, community groups, business groups, D.C., Sacramento, elected offices, all to suggest community support for schools. And one thing that means is hopefully saving jobs of teachers. Saving jobs is not oppositional to neighborhood councils. We're not just the advocates of the neighborhoods. We're your advocates because we can take your issues in a very interesting, community-based way and represent those causes to government on all levels, bringing resources into the city. So we are actually friends to the workplace and to the workforce, and so we should be respected for what we can do for you to help protect the workforce. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That concludes all of our cards. We'd ask the CLA to come up at this time. At our last meeting, you were asked to look at this issue and to make some recommendations for today's meeting. Okay. And that closes our public comment. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi. Good afternoon. Mr. Chair, you asked us to review this. Let me just go back a little bit where we started on this matter. Last week, when committee took up this action, there was a proposal to reduce neighborhood council funding in total by about $1 million to $1 million. Since that time, we've looked at some of the numbers and heard from some of the neighborhood councils that likely a number of them have already committed funding for some of their costs, some of their expenditures, and so there is concern about reducing the annual amount to $11,000. And so in looking at the numbers, City Clerk also came forward with a letter today reducing the cost of the election to an estimated $2.8 million. So based on all of that, as an end result, the total cost of the election is still about $1.5 million more than what we had anticipated when the election function was transferred to the clerk. So in an effort to get to that $1.5 million, we looked at the different fundings that were available. Bottom line, what we would recommend to you is that the funding for neighborhood council be restored to the amount of $35,000. And when you bring the $35,000, you can also fund that additional $1.5 million added cost to the election. In addition to that, we would be putting some additional general fund monies to fund the election and also using a portion of the done monies to also support that $1.5 million. Added is also what we would recommend that neighborhood councils, I think, ultimately should control how their elections are done. We would also include a recommendation that to the extent that neighborhood councils and working with city clerk, working with neighborhood empowerment, to the extent that they can come up with additional savings in the election costs, whether that be through different types of mailings or whether it be different types of vote by mail or any other efficiencies, or whether it be deferring elections, whatever the case may be, if they generate savings, we would recommend that all of those savings go back to the neighborhood councils to potentially actually restore them back to the $45,000 level.
Okay. Let me start off in the sense that several people, I don't know whether they were misinformed or whatever, but was any part of the recommendation was to move any of the rollover money?
No, the rollover monies would remain with the neighborhood councils.
So that was basically discussed at the last budget meeting, and there was a decision made not to touch the 1.5 rollover?
Right. We would recommend that you not.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, because several people commented as though that was part of a recommendation.
I think the discussion initiated from the rollover money is that there is about $1.5, $1.6 million that is being retained by neighborhood councils, although I heard that number fluctuate. So as part of the recommendations, we would also ask that the new controller-elect actually look at the cost accounting measures and methodologies that are being employed by neighborhood empowerment to track expenditures to ensure that that the expenditures are appropriate, and also that some neighborhood councils, so that they don't overexpend, which is what we found in some cases, that there have been some over expenditures.
When you were doing the research for this report today, was there some difficulty in identifying exactly how much money is in accounts as it relates to neighborhood councils, how much of it is available for rollover, and how much of it is being earmarked?
We did have some difficulty. We're actually not quite sure whether the monies are under council policy. Neighborhood councils are allowed to roll over 2 years of funding, but we were unable to determine whether the funds that are rolling over, whether they're 2 years old, 1 year old, or possibly even 3 years old. So it's hard to track exactly the aging of those funds.
Okay. The other issue is that a couple of people commented on the issue of whether neighborhood councils have received an increase or cost of living. One of the things I'd like you to comment on is, I think recently in the last year or two or three, the rollover process was put in play to allow more flexibility in the budget, even though there was not an increase. 3 years were allowed to be maintained?
Initially, it was 3 years, and perhaps it was growing pains with the neighborhood councils, but what we're finding now is that the neighborhood councils are doing a much better job of spending their monies, getting their monies out into the community, because we've seen that the rollover amount has actually decreased over the course of the last few years.
But there's a policy that you can roll over, or you can hold on to at least 3 years of money as long as you don't go over $100,000?
It's actually 2 years. 2 years, $100,000.
Okay. All right. And then when you looked at the recommendations you made for us, on looking at the overall cost, initially I think it was $3 million for the overall budget, and then there was $4 million in the account for neighborhood councils, there's $4 million for elections. After you looked at those three pots of money, was there any savings that came out of evaluating how money should be distributed?
Yes. The net change to the general fund, which is what we've been looking at over the course of the last few weeks on the budget, the net change, when you look at budget to budget, the reduction would be about $2 million.
So that was a net reduction of $2 million from what was proposed?
Correct.
Okay. And then you've been working somewhat on the budget over the last, since April 20th.
Somewhat.
Yes, somewhat. The issue of the deficit, and you've only worked on budgets for how many years?
I've been with the city 27 years.
Yeah. And so the issue is the deficit that we've been talking about real, or is that something that is basically a budget or a deficit that is just manufactured?
In my 27 years, I have never seen a budget that has this much downside potential. We are already looking, as you know, at a $530 million deficit for the current year. There are a number of revenues and proposals to balance the budget for the current year. Unfortunately, in our review, as during your meetings, you have determined that well over $300 million of those solutions are risky at best.
Let me ask this, in your 27 years, what is your recollection of how many people in any given budget year that the city has actually laid off?
I think that in terms of layoffs, I think last year we may have laid off 2 people.
Okay.
Ultimately, maybe perhaps about 5 to 6 years ago, we may have laid off 8 people. I think that what we are being faced with in the very, very short term will be monumental.
Okay, and just we won't hold you to the exact figure.
I just wanted to add to that. I think it's become lore that we've never done layoffs. Well, that is largely true in terms of the civilian and civil service workforce. They have occurred. They did occur during Prop 13. As you know, my office in particular is about 70% smaller today than it was in 1978. So although for a variety of civil service rules people have not ended up on the street, to say that there has not been displacement in the past is just not true.
Okay, but the issue is compared to what we'll be addressing tomorrow. Have we had a year where we're talking about displacing literally people in the numbers of thousands?
We have never addressed anything like you will be addressing tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, and maybe it's also the, if City Clerk could come up as well, and Dunn representatives. Colleagues and I have expressed to all of you my interest, and publicly said, of bringing back the amount for the neighborhood councils and to a level that will allow them to continue their operation. And I think you would hear from all of us, and I know Mr. Smith and I have had conversations about the commitment and the, passion and other in which the neighborhood councils have been an integral part of the city of Los Angeles, have become an integral part, and the services they provide and the monies that have been identified and utilized in some of our communities have been incredibly helpful, and in fact sometimes we can leverage those dollars to do even more. And I think I know a lot of the neighborhood council members have left, but I want to thank some of all of you that are here and those that attended earlier, sitting through budget committee or being here for 4 hours. I was remarking to someone, Mr. Parks and Mr. Smith, I think we've been here since 7:45 this morning. I've yet to go upstairs, so between ERC and committee and council today. I was concerned last week when we had some of the discussions about the cost of the elections that we had adopted probably 2 years ago in the document, I think, which Ms. Hahn also alluded to, was $1.3 million. And that was, I think the council made a decision, the city council made the decision, that was a reasonable amount of money in which to do the elections and to ensure that we have a level playing field for everyone, and that we would not have some of the challenges we've had in the past with the elections not being able really to be certified based on how some of those elections were run. So we really wanted to set up a professional organization in which to do that. I don't think any of us anticipated the $4.5 million price tag that came with it. It was really the 1.3. We had a conversation yesterday. I met with the Dunn and City Clerk, kind of going over the budget, and have also talked to numerous neighborhood councils who expressed to me their intent was not to do as much as we would like to see the outreach that was proposed in that budget to send to every postal unit in the city, that in a tight budget time that just wasn't possible, and that the kind of outreach these neighborhood councils have done would be helpful in getting more people to vote at the polls, just as we'd like to see more than the 17% that we had at the polls just in March, which to me was devastating, and I'm assuming even May 19th we will have probably less than that 17%. So since yesterday, and we met and we talked about it, you've come back with a $2.8 million cut or adjustment to your budget. I had hoped in earlier conversations with the CLA that they were identifying some funds, so between the $1.2 million you've identified and other potential savings that we could get back to that $45,000. And I think, Sharon, you mentioned that some of the rollover, not rollover money, but unexpended funds within other elections that the CAO had anticipated $20 million in returning.
That's correct. The CAO, when they do the reserve fund projection for next year, they always anticipate that a certain amount of revenue will be reverting to the general fund at year end. The CAO indicates that they've counted $20 million as part of the reversion. So there is some concern that if that total amount does not happen at year end, that potentially that the city's reserve fund will be shorted as it was in the current year because reversions did not happen as anticipated.
I have a couple questions for Don and the city clerk. There had been was a motion introduced by Mr. Alarcon today, which suggested that we postpone the elections until July, let's just say July 2nd of 2010, which I know we've already postponed many of those, and I've talked to several neighborhood councils who were not sure that that was a good option. We still have a $500 million budget deficit for the following year that we are going to have to be able to fill as well. So even with avoiding that, it would be something that would come back to us. Have you heard anything from the neighborhood councils that have been proposed? And the other proposal, which had come forward, I think, I'm not sure if Ms. Hahn mentioned it directly, she had recommended $35,000 plus finding $10,000, I think, out of the Dunn budget.
Our current operating budget for this next fiscal year is a total of $300,000.
But your overall budget is how much?
Overall budget would be about 3.2. So we don't
So
have...
$10,000 would be $900,000 of your $3 million.
Correct. Which would start cutting into our staff positions because our operating expenses are only $300,000. So I would have some very serious concerns about maintaining our ability to provide meaningful services to the neighborhood councils. Our role is primarily to provide training and technical assistance, to help neighborhood councils improve their outreach capacity, and also work in terms of helping neighborhood councils establish the right kind of linkages with city government. The outreach work isn't really included in our budget. We were really counting on soliciting as much in-kind support from public and private sector as much as possible. So our staff would mainly be looking to work with Channel 35, reaching out to private media corporations and perhaps getting some PSAs out there, also reaching out to some nonprofit organizations to see if they would get involved in improving participation in neighborhood councils. But our marketing and outreach is pretty much limited to that with the budget that we were allocated.
To the city clerk, when you reported to me yesterday, there was the first mailer that went to all postal units, and then there was the second mailer, and then there was the vote by mail. And how will you do the vote by mail? Because that, I think in the new version, it goes up to it was $784,000, and now you're recommending $657,000.
I'm sorry, what report are you referring to?
There was the Budget and Finance report that came forward, that Memo 54, the May 5th, that indicated the vote by mail was $784,000. In the document dated May 11th from June, it has on page 2 that the vote by mail is now $657,331.
Okay. The $784,000 cost for vote by mail was when we were estimating our budget requirement at $4.5 million.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm just curious more about how are you going to go about doing the vote by mail?
Okay. When we conducted the pilot project in 2008, the vote-by-mail application was included in the first mailer that went out to basically we used the Water and Power mailing list and created a file based on the boundaries of the neighborhood councils. So within a specific neighborhood council, it went to everyone who was on the Water and Power mailing list. What we found, though, is that did not necessarily reach all of the potential stakeholders within that neighborhood council, which is why we had proposed using the more universal postal customer list to conduct the mailing. So for going forward, without us being responsible for doing the mailing, what we would have to do is put the information, put the application on our web, make it available to be included with any potential outreach efforts that either done or the neighborhood councils themselves would be conducting. We are continuing to meet with each of the neighborhood councils. Right now, we're working toward developing an updated election procedure so we can make it available to them as we meet with them. But that
So for the 657,000, though, that would include, that must be a mailing.
No,
For vote by
that's
mail.
simply the steps. So once once the vote-by-mail applications are available to the stakeholders, they can choose to submit one. It would come to our office. We would verify their eligibility based on the requirements for each of the specific neighborhood councils. Each neighborhood council has different requirements in terms of who's eligible to vote on certain races. So we would have to make sure that that person's we would determine that person's eligibility, send them the correct ballots, and then once they mail them back to us, we would include that in the tally for that particular neighborhood council. So the cost is in the preparation of the ballots, the preparation of the vote-by-mail mailer back to the voter so that they could vote in the comfort of their home and then send it back to us, and then processing the staff cost to process those applications and ballots. So it's not...
You're not mailing at all. I mean, I have to say, and I didn't understand that part of it because it seems like an awful lot of money for the vote by mail. I mean, I'd rather us see and work with the neighborhood councils and Dunn and CLA to use that some of that money to go back to put us back to the 45,000.
Okay.
I just...
there is some mailing involved, because when we receive an application from...
to mail it to them.
We're going to mail them the ballot.
But where I don't understand, and this is the questions I asked yesterday before, which was in the overall mailing to every person in the city of Los Angeles who has a postal address, was 600,000.
Right.
So if that was mailing to everyone, and this is vote by mail, is 657,000 for just those that request it. I understand there's some staff costs associated with it, but I think we can massage that more, because it does seem like an extraordinary amount. And again, I know that, and I think for everyone out there, that the city clerk was doing this in a way that they wanted to have the greatest participation ever, and that is something we all want to be able to do. But in having to make some choices, I think that's what we're looking at here, and to be able to look. And I do want to show, if you could, if you brought those documents, colleagues, and I did mention to Linda, our president of the Neighborhood Council, and to Bonwan Kim, in one of the Neighborhood Councils, so remain nameless, I want you just to see, colleagues, the number of ballots that are required, because there's no unanimity or templates for voting. So if you could just put those out.
Could I just say first, though, that the cost included in the vote by mail function within our budget didn't include the cost of the first mailing. So that was separate.
Correct. I understand that.
Okay.
All I'm saying is that the first mailer, it's just that mailer was 600,000 total, and this one is just by those people who are asking to vote by mail. So you will not get the same, it's not the same magnitude, and that's my only concern.
That's correct. Okay. So what we have here is just a sample of a neighborhood council election, and the complexity comes in because the neighborhood councils they select their structure, and we're honoring that structure in terms of the offices, who is eligible to run for that office, and then who is eligible to vote for that office. So for this particular case, we have one separate ballot for a business representative, and it was a vote for 7 option. For the same neighborhood council, they also have a community organization rep, where again, people could vote for 7. They have 5 districts wherein the voters would give us their address, and then we would determine which district they fell in and make sure they got the correct ballot. Then there were races where anybody could vote for these representatives. Each neighborhood council has their own structure, and they've determined who can run for office and who gets to vote for them. And that's where the complexity comes in.
And Linda, I just wanted you to see that, because I think, again, that was probably never their intent, and the whole idea was empowerment. But I think we need to get simplistic, and as we are going back to the basics in the City of Los Angeles, as indicated as some of the things we are not going to be able to do in the City of Los Angeles because of the $500 million budget deficit, I think we have to go back to the basics and what is the simplest and easiest way in which people can vote in their areas, and to work on a template. So I'm going to challenge you all to do that, and those of you, the neighbor councils that are still left, to work with us to do that, so that we allow for the independence of each of those neighborhood councils, and at the same time not require this kind of complexity when there's a vote, because to see that many different colors of printing and all the different times, that alone costs us a lot of money to be able to do that. So I would just ask for the CLA and Dunn and City Clerk to look back and see if there is additional savings that would bring us up to that $45,000, and as part of that, as we look at options to do that.
Thank you for all you who stayed to clap for Ms. Grill, too. I appreciate that. I know it's been a very long day for you, and like one person said, you don't get paid to be here, so we do appreciate that. I wanted to just take an opportunity to ask a question or two, but also to dispel some incorrect information that was given by some of the speakers. First of all, the 10% cut that we're talking about in the neighborhood council funding is the shared sacrifice cut the mayor proposed across the board. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. In addition to that, we're also looking at cuts in departments upwards of, what's the planning department cut?
25,
I thought it was 32%.
There are a number of departments. In fact, most departments are seeing a reduction of more than 10%, because there's a shared sacrifice reduction, and then on top of that, there are further reductions. In fact, most departments are seeing a reduction of anywhere between 15 to 30 some odd percent.
Okay. So when you say we're doing our fair share at 10, I don't think there's many departments of the city that are at 10. Most of them are well above 10. There's only 1 or 2 that are below 10 even. But 10 is just was this shared sacrifice concept the mayor put forward without really funding it in the budget yet. And that's what we're going to be taking up tomorrow, is how do you do that? The reality is the shared sacrifice was based on negotiating with the unions contracts that are apparently not going very well. So I'll leave it at that. But to say that 10% is not a number that anyone's living by or stuck to, and many departments are sharing much, much, much bigger than 10% cuts. Some people mentioned our salaries. I believe it was 2 years ago, about 12 of the members of the 15 members gave back their pay raise at that time, and their proposal is before us tomorrow is to look at a 10% cut or maybe more on our council salaries. So we are doing that. Special events. One person said, and I see he's left, an old friend of mine, I've known him for many, many years, said, quit giving away money in special events. Well, we have a policy that would cut that from a $5 million a year expenditure to $2.5 million. But I'd also notate, and I know that I see Judy Daniels back and other neighborhood councils from my district, a lot of those motions to waive fees for services of the city were for neighborhood councils. And I know I gave about $30,000 in special event money last year to those neighborhood councils. So to say eliminate it will put a bigger burden on your back, because then we're going to ask you to start paying for some of those things because we can't waive them anymore. What I'm saying is you have to think very globally. It's easy to sit there and say, don't touch our $45,000. But in reality, we have to deal with huge issues, larger in huge ways, bigger than the $45,000 we're talking about in neighborhood councils. And the proposal you brought forward, which we restored back to 35, is a jump, and a giant jump in the right direction. Winnie and I began this discussion Thursday night at 9 or 10 o'clock at night on how we could find that. And I think it's important that we're trying to do that. And to villainize us is not the approach that constitutes democracy and working together. It's trying to build camps and fight each other, and I don't think that's productive for any of you or us. That is not the intent. The intent is to try and dig a hole out of a huge budget. I said last week, and I'll say it again, I know it is not popular to say this, but I will say this. As we look at budgets, I have been so proud of what neighborhood councils have done in my district the last few years. I have shared funding for them. Judy and neighborhood council, we put up, 2 or 3 of those electronic speed signs that the radar registers speed, and we shared the cost. In Granada Hills, I shared the cost with the neighborhood council on putting playground equipment in one of our parks. One of our neighborhood councils helped buy property for a new park. One of our other neighborhood councils put a lot of money into a new swimming facility in our district. These are the great things neighborhood councils do, and I don't disparage that one iota. I revel in it. But at the same time, tomorrow we begin a process of looking at laying off 4,000 city employees. Those are the people that fill the potholes. And one person said, give us the money and we'll get the potholes filled. Well, if there's nobody to fill it, nobody to dump this asphalt in the street, neighborhood council people are going to pick up the rake and the truck and drive it over there? That's not what you guys are good for, and that's not what you should be doing. The fact of the matter is, we're going to be laying off so many people. And if at the end of the day, you're asking me to give you money for some holiday parties some of you mentioned, or for the Christmas tree lighting, which is a wonderful thing, or to do some of those nice projects, or buy shirts for your neighborhood council, that's really nice. But if it means 60 people lose their jobs, I'm not morally able to do that. And if you want me to do that, and you want to be mad at me for doing that, then be mad at me. But I'm not going to go to 60 city employees and face them man to man, woman to woman, and say, your job is eliminated because I had to buy some shirts for the neighborhood council in this community, or I wanted to make sure this neighborhood council could light a Christmas tree. I can't morally do that. And so if it means a cut to you and a little more than you wanted, and you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at me, be mad at Mr. Parks, I'm a big boy, I can take it. But you have to understand the moral implications of what we are doing here. And this is the most difficult time in my 30 years of working for this city, that we're going to say to a whole bunch of people who started to work for the city, who planned a career for the city, who have lives at home and children to feed and houses to pay for their family, we're going to send you home and you don't get a paycheck anymore. In the worst economy in modern times, go find another job. You can't do it. And so if you're asking me to do that, I'm truly, truly sorry, but I can't.
Did you mention that?
Really need to pause on ourselves after Greg Smith as well as Wendy Grill. Let me be real clear about this. I have 8 neighborhood councils in the 11th district. I embrace them all, even the Palisades and Brentwood, which aren't affiliated with the city, because it's the first level of grassroots democracy for me. I listen to neighborhood councils. I speak to neighborhood councils. I get energy from them. They get energy from me. I can't do it alone. I got 300,000 people out there who are very engaged in their community. We got the highest
second highest voter registration in the city is the 11th district, and we have huge turnouts, far beyond anybody else except maybe Zine and the 5th and mine, and everybody else is half the people register, half the people participate. But I have a very active constituency, and I welcome that, and I relish that, and I empower that, and I embrace that. I want to get to the 45,000, but I don't want to get it at the expense of a city employee and a job. I want to get to that 45,000 because I think the real issue for us is the definition of a stakeholder. I was not part of that process when the city defined a stakeholder as a person who owns property. I would never let a person who owns property have a vote in my district. People who work in that, I wouldn't do that either. For me, it would only be registered voters. If you want to make it a democracy, you go according to the way this Constitution of the United States was set up. All this other craziness, I've experienced other councils in my district where certain groups have co-opted people and co-opt the process. That's why I've been wanting with Linda Lux to come up with a decent avenue for financial disclosure so that we can get clarity in even how we do those things. So I'm a passionate person for neighborhood councils. I think what we need to do, Madam City Clerk, and welcome on board, you're great, is you need to find a way to squeeze this down so that we can be more simple when we go forward with how we define a stakeholder and how we do it. I know I can't go for a charter reform right now and get it done in this moment and a half, but I think our definition of stakeholder makes it so problematic, makes it so complex, that nobody really knows how to do it properly. Though there's an energy of positiveness among neighborhood council people, it's to me a joke. Okay? It's a joke. But I work with whatever council I have in front of me because it's people who care about their district. It's people who care about their community. And a lot of people do sacrifice a lot to be there in the evenings instead of being with their spouses and their children. But they love their community. So I don't want to dish neighborhood councils. We spent a whole day, half a day on this, and we got the bigger issues that Mr. Smith is saying. I mean, literally, the mayor declared today a fiscal emergency. An official letter went from the mayor to all of us on the council. We have a fiscal emergency. And how do we deal with it? Tomorrow you're going to hear of 4,000 potential job layoffs. You're going to hear of a lot of other things. Until there's more cooperation with the unions about dealing with this issue and opening up their discussions and becoming more flexible. I don't want to lay off people. I don't want to furlough people. I don't want to cut back on services. I'd like to find us all share the pain and make it work. So in an overall conversation with the colleagues here, I got to say that if we can make it to 45, I will go with Ms. Gruhl on this. If we can get up there by cutting back and defining better through our new clerk here, working with neighborhood council people who can be part of your volunteer team so it doesn't have to be all paid employees that do this kind of work. I can tell you, my neighborhood councils, those folks really care about the democracy. And I bet you could pick, at least from the 6 that are affiliated in my district, you could pick an army of people there that would be part of a volunteer group that would work with you to get this stuff done so we don't have to spend hard dollars on it. I would rather those hard dollars go back into giving you that multiplier effect that 45,000 has. It's a multiplier effect. It goes out and it partners and it interacts and it makes the democracy even more effective. So I want to go to the 45. We need your help, City Clerk, to see how we can squeeze back down, simplify things, maybe even have a checklist that neighborhood council people could help you define and work with and make it happen. And maybe Ms. Gruhl and you know, Mr. Parks and Mr. Smith and I, right here today, can kind of come to some conclusion. We'll try to get to the 45. The best we can, you'll report back. It doesn't happen tomorrow morning. Or if we can say 45, find a way to get to 45. That's what I'm going to propose. Find a way to get to 45 and report back on how you're going to get to 45. If you can't, tell us that. But if we can find it in squeezing a nickel or dime out of your operation, a nickel or dime less for the clerk's job, maybe we can come up to that. I don't want to say no to 45. I want to say, how do we get to 45? Thanks.
And I think that for those of us that were here during the original budget process, when we made the original change, one of the things we asked the CLA to look at was, and also asked Dunn relay the message to neighborhood councils, the more cooperation they had with the city clerk and the more money that was saved, the intent was to move the money back into their account. But when we had the original budget request, it was $4 million for the election, and no one had any answers as to where that money was going to come from. So I think the partial message that went out and somewhat inflamed the community didn't give them the real crux of what was the discussion in the Budget Committee. The one thing I think is important for us to realize, and Mr. Rosenthal was very passionate about those numbers, I think the other issue that all of us are going to have to think about, and we talked about it this morning, is that we can make a lot of decisions today and Friday and then Monday and Tuesday, but we all know that May Revise at the state level is talking about $68 million being taken from the city of L.A. For property tax. I believe we have over $100 million lost from Prop 40, Prop K, Prop 1B that they have not dispersed. And if those initiatives fail on May the 19th, it will be more gloom. And so I think everything that we put in the budget is temporary, and it's going to be something that's going to get revised as we go forward. And I have to say that, similar to Mr. Smith, if it comes down to me making a decision about saving a job or having a nice-to-have program, I'm going to vote in every instance to save a job. Having been here for over 40-some years, none of us has experienced a situation where we're talking about this number of people, and it's going to be devastating tomorrow, even to put it on paper. Whether it ever happens, it's going to be devastating to just put it on paper and to be able to say, we're talking about lives and families and rent and foreclosures and houses. It's not just the number. And that's what we're going to be dealing with tomorrow, because as we all said when we saw the budget and we made some decisions today about $80 million that didn't exist in the budget, how we're going to address that over the next few weeks. We talked very clearly about not having money in the budget that didn't exist. And I think it's those kinds of things that shared responsibility, I think, gave people a misnomer as though that money was already secured. That was a philosophy, and none of those issues such as shared responsibility and those menu of issues that were brought forward, none of them have come to pass. And I think tomorrow when the CLA brings us a report, we certainly want to acknowledge them. We want to say all the things that were there on the table. But if none of them have produced any money, then there's only two tools that this Budget Committee is going to have over the next few days. And one of them is layoffs and the other is furloughs. That's the only way that we're going to be able to address and remove people from the payroll so that we can have a long-term health of the city budget. So I think that, again, if we had the money, we would have not even asked to have this looked at. Certainly, I would support the CLA's proposal today, but also if there's money that can be saved in the elections, or if there's money that we can move from the department budget that makes this a picture that's whole, then we should move forward and restore. But on the other hand, we need to know how temporary it is because of the pending budget matters that are far beyond our control. So what we're going to do, if we have any more questions, we'll move in that direction, adopt the CLA's report with a verbal direction that if you are able to secure additional funds, and those funds can be removed from the election process or from the done budget, then we can move that money into the neighborhood councils. And so we'll move from that point, and we'll continue this meeting until tomorrow, Wednesday, where we'll go through the CLA's report. And at that time, we'll start the meeting to go through the last handful of budget memos, and then we'll get into the CLA's report, which we'll be presenting to the City Council on Friday. And the meeting tomorrow will be either at 1 o'clock or a half hour after Council adjourns. And so we'll continue at this time. Thank you.